at home, in the church. We need to learn to speak encouraging words. Doesn't mean we can't be honest about life and the things that happen in life. But our positive attitude makes a difference. When I walk into church in the morning and your face is radiant and smiling, even though you may not say anything, it gives a message. It gives a message. Maybe my week may not have been great, but I'm going to encourage somebody just with a smile today. Just with saying, hey, good morning. Good morning. No, good morning. I'm going to make the effort to make a difference that way. And that's important. That's important. And then the other thing was, like Nathaniel said, consistency. They followed God wholly, completely. Okay? They used the word later on, a different spirit they had. Joshua and Caleb had a different spirit. Ultimately, we can be encouraged by others. We can look at others. But ultimately, we have to make a decision for Christ ourselves. It has to be a personal decision that we make to follow Christ. A song says, with a made-up mind, I've got heaven in my view. These guys had the promised land in their view. Can you imagine Caleb and Joshua recognizing that, hey, you know what? We're not going in right now. We've got to go wander around for a little bit more time. Not necessarily because of our lack of faith, but because of the whole situation that we're dealing with here. And they spent the next 38 years wandering around, and there's no record of them complaining about that. Being angry at people. It's your fault. Sure, but you had that. Don't see any of that. They just still followed the Lord and were consistent, I believe, in their faith. And they were still anticipating and looking forward to the fulfillment of what God said he was going to do. That's why, if you're asking the question later on in the lesson, why did Caleb want to go to that spot? Why did he want the inheritance that he got as the first person to receive the inheritance? He had a plan. He wanted to prove certain things. He wanted to prove that the 10 spies probably were wrong. He wanted to show, though, the younger people in the next generation what faith can really do for you. And he wanted to prove God as being right. That was probably his main reason for wanting that property.
Yeah, because, they both could have gotten so discouraged with the things that they were seeing in this whole group of people, especially, going back in Numbers and the great apostasy that happened because of the Moabitish women and that whole incident. That was just, like, what has gotten into you guys? What is going on? And in spite of all those things, they kept faith and trying to encourage the people to have faith and to turn away from the apostasy that was going on. And same with us today. There are things going on within our church. I don't mean this church, but I mean, internationally, things at the head of our organization. We cannot let those things discourage us. We have to speak to the fact that God has a plan. The enemy is trying to dissuade us from that plan, but we have to stand regardless. This is the Lord's work. It's not ours. This is the Lord's work. We are supposed to be missionaries as a part of this work. And so we cannot become discouraged. That's why I said in the beginning, don't let somebody's experience, if it was negative and they're telling you, oh, I don't come anymore because this happened and that person said that to me and this person did this to me. That's not the stuff we need to hold on to. We need to hold on to Jesus Christ. Amen. Look at him as our example. And we have to say, Lord, keep me encouraged. And through his word, through our prayers, those are things that will keep us encouraged.
Because the reality is we are human. We have human emotions. We have human desires. We're just human beings. And so we do get discouraged at times. But God says, trust in me.
Right.
When you begin to go in that direction, bring it back a little bit. Trust in me. Don't go too far. Bring it back. Bring it back. Okay? Trust in him. Okay? Not ourselves. Because we can't do it ourselves. Okay? God's promises are not necessarily self-fulfilling. They require faith accompanied by resolute positive action on our part. There are things we have to do, not to be saved, but to prove it, just to encourage our own faith in a way of speaking, basically. So, anyway. So Caleb asked for the hill country. He asked for that piece of land where they had seen the giants. He wanted that piece of property. He wanted it. He had to have it. Okay, he was the first one, I believe, to basically say what he wanted. And that's what he was going to be given, because God had promised him that. He promised him. It was somewhat mountainous. Yeah, it was somewhat mountainous, I believe. It was hill country, you know. And that's where the giants were. Okay, and there were still some giants there even as they're talking about this. Okay. Did Caleb he could take that land on his own?
He knew God could.
Right.
Yeah, he knew God could. That's the key. Knowing God can.
Amen.
And the more opportunities you give God to work in your life, the more things you're going to see about what God can do. You're going to see those things. And you can store those things in your memory banks. Now, it amazes me, but I probably would have been like the children of Israel. I probably would have been like them. That God had done these things. He delivered them from Egypt. We talked about this. All the 10 plagues, all the things he did there. The Red Sea, what he did there. The fire by night, the cloud by day. I mean, those are visible things. Those are big things, okay, that God has done. Crossing the Red Sea, you know, taking care of them with food and manna in the wilderness, providing water for them when they were running out. I mean, all the things. And I'm thinking to myself, hindsight, would I have been the same way as they were? Could have been. I hope not. But could have been, you know. And they saw these things, and yet, you know, they were going not on what they actually had seen. They had some sight to see this stuff, but they were forgetful. You know, one thing, it's like a child, you know, to some extent. You do something for a child, and, you know, they're happy with that thing for a second. Then you go off and do something else, and then they want something else next, okay? They're never totally satisfied. You can't quite give them enough. That's how the children of Israel are. Or were. You couldn't quite just do it well enough for them where they would really become convicted and converted about what the Lord was wanting to do in their lives.
And that's why, you know, the Lord told them at certain spots, make a memorial, you know, build an altar so that it can be seen and that you'll remember why, you know, we came out of this. And even for us today, many of you might do this already, but if you don't, I would encourage you to do this, is have a journal that you record things that have happened. And you go back and you read it and you say, hey, the Lord brought me through this. How did I forget that? But you have it written down, you go back and you read it, and it encourages your heart. You know, I remember being on the 80, heading down to see our daughter at Weimar, and I thought I was driving the right way and doing what I needed to do, but all of a sudden this car comes, you know, into my lane. I didn't expect it, and I can only say it's the angel of the Lord that prevented me from hitting that car and being in an accident. And you know, things like that I write down because it helps you to remember how God is leading your life. You might not understand everything at that time, but record how the Lord is leading you. and what he's done for you that particular day. And again, just amazing miracles for yourself that you'll see, hey, I'm not alone. The Lord's leading me. He's carrying me through.
Thanks, Rudy.
My mom always taught me if you're getting discouraged and you think everything's been going wrong for you, she says, start counting your blessings.
Right.
And by doing that, creates the faith, because what he's already done for you.
Right.
And it helps you to have a better attitude toward the future.
Right.
And trust in the Lord.
That's right.
That's exactly what we're
Amen.
talking about. Caleb's attitude embodies a faith that set the bar high. Sometimes we set the bar a little low. We want to make sure we can jump over it. You don't want to trip, okay? I remember I, go out and play golf occasionally, and there are ropes out there to sort of demarcate where things are, and so the places where you are not supposed to go. And all my friends, they've seen me trip over the ropes multiple times, okay? I'll say I'm going to step on the rope and walk over it. They've seen me trip. They say, don't, no, Darrell, don't go around. Don't step over the rope. But we need to set bars that are high, okay, with Christ. He's not some mamsy-pamsy God who can't do whatever needs to be done. He can handle it. Trust him. Set the bar high. Don't be satisfied with just the ordinary, the mundane, the commonplace. Set high bars for your God. Not that we're being presumptuous. Caleb made the comment, perhaps, maybe God. God can. And he wasn't being unfaithful or untrue to God when he said, perhaps, maybe God will. He wasn't showing fear or doubting. What he was saying was, I anticipate that God's going to do something powerfully for me. According to what? His will. His will. Never forget his will. Your will be done. Not my will, but your will be done. Yeah. Moving on. Oh, come on, yeah. We don't have to go through the whole lesson. We're going to just talk and encourage each other in faith today and do what we can. Thank you. Hey, Daniel.
I'm facing a bit of a dilemma as I was reading about Caleb this week. And it says in verse 12, now therefore, give me this mountain. Not, can I please have this mountain? Would you mind, if it's possible, this is a demand. This is a give me what I deserve, what I'm owed, what has been promised me. So this is a give me. And I try to balance that with Matthew 5, verse 5. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. So the meek, those who are very, and I see someone as meek, is very self-sacrificing, very, don't worry about it, just kind of, and they're the ones who are going to inherit. But then I look at Caleb, and I looking at this, he wasn't meek. He was like, give me. And I got one more verse that comes to my mind, and this is all the way in Genesis 32, verse 26, and this is Jacob, who is wrestling. And he says, I will not let you go unless you bless me. So I find this conflicting idea in my mind. Where is that balance? We're supposed to be meek. At the same time, we're supposed to be bold. But don't be bold, because if you're bold, you're arrogant. And if you're arrogant, that's not bad. You're supposed to be meek. But if you're meek, you don't get what you... I'm in this, whoa, how am I supposed to act as a Christian? How am I... Is Caleb being too aggressive here? I don't know, maybe other people have thoughts on this controversy in my brain.
Anybody have any? I think it's a good point.
Yeah. And I also think that even the word meek does not mean weak. I think there's
Just
a
because it rhymes
meekness.
doesn't mean it is. Well, the hill country, I read other books. And in the hill country, we're the biggest and the baddest giants in the land. And this is Caleb going, give it to me. I will take it. There you go. And the people around him said, well, give it to him. He'll slay them all, and then we'll be better.
Any other comments on that? The dichotomy between...
Actually, it was promised to the Israelites back when Caleb and Joshua first went there as spies.
Right.
So Caleb knew that this was already promised to him because he knew God had promised it previously. And so he just asked God, okay, honor your promise, give this to me.
I think also as we look at that as in most things, all things, I'm going to say, God knows our hearts. He knows our hearts. He knows if we're asking in arrogance or if we're asking in greed or we just want it for ourselves. He knows those things. And so certainly, I think a meek spirit in a lot of ways is what God looks for as well. But he also looks for those who will stand up for him boldly, recognizing not their own strength, but his power. His power. His ability.
I think it was his way of claiming the promise.
Yeah. Uh-oh. Here's the real answer.
I was last night at family worship. You know, we call our mom at times, and she was on last night, and we were talking about. But I have a question just to ask. Wasn't this land promised to the Israelites from Moses' time? All right, so a promise from God. These soldiers going into the land, seeing that there are giants, coming back with doubt and fear. Last night we thought that, okay, so God promised a land filled with milk and honey from a very long time ago. They went around for a long time they were in the wilderness. And finally they're at the brink of claiming. My mom said something to me. Well, I mean, Meek's role was, we read something that when we doubt God, doubt comes from Lucifer. Doubting God is saying that his word is not true. This is not, he promised us a big gift.
Right.
And he is a big God. He created the earth, he created the world, he created us. So his promises for us is from his love for us. He wants us to have this thing. And regardless of who we are, we cannot measure God by our deficiencies. We cannot measure God by our lack. If we are in this covenant with him, this promise with him, it behooves us to want to deny him his power, his glory, the gift he wants to give us. We cannot, so the soldiers went in and measured the giants by their stature,
Yes.
Right.
not by God's. And, you know, if I were to measure God by my stature, man, there are things that I would not have done. My first child would have died. So when he says he will do something, he already gave that promise in his word to us
Right.
today.
Right.
It is hard for us to follow,
Yeah.
but if we love him and we believe in him,
Right. Right.
then we must accept it.
Right.
So the soldiers came back and said, oh, these giants, I cannot. We cannot, we won't. but what did God promise?
Right. Amen.
You know, a lot of
Amen.
things we're not going to even be able to win by our own strength, our own ability to strategize, our own planning, or even our own determination.
I think sometimes we have to be careful how we ask for things. We can be insistent to God, and if we ask for things for His will to be done is one thing, but if we ask for it and are insistent because of our will, then sometimes He gives in and gives it. Look what He did with the children of Israel. They were being fed manna, and then they insisted on meat.
Yeah.
And God gave it to them, and a lot of them died.
Yep.
So sometimes God gives us things that are not for our best interest because we're so insistent. So I want it to be because it's God's will.
Right. Right. So true, because they ate so much of it that it became a plague, negative.
We've got about 5, 6 more minutes, but I'm not going to go ahead. Comments.
Coming to the Messiah with a grateful heart. In my life, when I first moved to Susanville, it's kind of a testimony, but I didn't have time for it. But when I moved here, I took in a single mother with 3 children, and went out and got wood for them and whatnot, and I had that heart for it. And then when I was done with that, my girlfriend at the time, she says, I need $35. I need to go put an application in to buy a house. And then I went out and I cut wood, and then I got a $70 check, and I gave her the whole thing. That was my first tithe. And then 2 months later, I bought a house. I was 22. So, it's just with that grateful heart, and that's the meek. That's the meek.
Couple things I want to bring up. Just go ahead, Nathan.
Sorry, maybe if I can kind of recap what I'm hearing, this catchphrase, mindset. Someone can be very arrogant and be like, give me. At the same time, we can also claim the promises that God and the blessings that God has given us. We can say, give me, not because I deserve it, but because you promised it. And without that mindset of saying, hey, I'm going to claim this, we can perhaps even do a discredit to God by not being courageous, by being, oh, no, it's okay. God says, be courage, be bold. And if we're too laid back, we're not stepping up to do what God has, to fulfill the promises that God has for us. So as I think you've mentioned, and I think many other people have said, the mindset that we have going into it. Is it me or is it God?
Amen. Amen. I want to hit one other point. I mean, there's so many things in this lesson. We may have to teach again next week. No, I'm just kidding. Caleb was not satisfied just to secure, though, his inheritance. He was concerned with passing on his courage, his trust, and his perseverance to his children and grandchildren. There's a lot I could say about that, but what are some of the challenges of passing on faith to the next generation? As you look at the Adventist church, the average age of an Adventist member, anybody guess what that average age is? 51. You saw that sermon too, huh? 51. It's in the stats, 51, okay? How do we go about, and we may not have been perfect about it in the past, but how do we go about making this faith that we have, what God has given us, how do we give that to our kids and our grandchildren in a meaningful way? Church school is not a guarantee. Okay? Youth programs isn't a guarantee. They're all good things, but there's no guarantees. um, all the programs we have and those kind of things. There's no guarantees. Go ahead.
We have to be very prayerful in what we pass on. And we got to remember that we are his ambassadors. We represent to our families, to our neighbors, to everyone, him. What is God? Some of them don't know God. And the only God they see is us. Caleb and Joshua were examples to the rest. And that's why they were blessed.
And we must understand, I think, too, as we deal with our own kids and ourselves, that character is not just developed overnight. Okay? It's not. It's a process. Walking with the Lord is a process. But we must give our young people, because I'm concerned about our church and the young people who were, they're here one minute and gone the next. If you talk about even those who graduate from our colleges, many of those don't stay around after a while. Okay? More stay around than those who don't go to our colleges. But many don't stay around, don't stick around.
Right. And I think with all of that, with the education, with our homes, our example, we have to make sure, I believe, and again, I don't have everything right either, but we need to spend time in explaining why we have a faith, what Jesus is, for Jesus to become real for each of us, because I think unless we understand how much he has done for us, how much he loves us, and trying to show that love in the things that we do, making it real, they kind of say, okay, yes, I was taught this and this, but I need to make it real. Each one of us need to make it real. And that starts from, getting up in the morning, recognizing that you have life from God. He's the one who's given it to you. The reason you can move and see and breathe and talk and taste, just those simple things, is because of the love of God. And so I think that simpleness of, hey, the reason we can go here today is because God is allowing us. Reason why we can go off on vacation is because God's giving us that blessing. So making it real, I think, is one of the things that's so important.
The lesson brought up a few points. I think this is good. I know we don't have much time. My wife is telling me, she's saying, hurry along. So I'm going to listen to my wife, okay? It says, by providing a loving, non-judgmental environment. That's a place to start with young people. A loving, non-judgmental environment. Does it mean that I agree with everything you do? No. Okay, or have done? Nor would you agree with everything I've done. But a loving, non-judgmental environment where there are questions, whether philosophical, academic, scientific, those things can be looked at honestly, okay, and in a way that stays faithful to the Bible. We need to work on those kinds of things in our church locally, whether it's having programs for our kids, vespers, talking times, whatever it may be, so that they know we care about them. And we're willing to address their questions, even though we may not have all the answers. And we probably don't have all the answers. And we probably botched a lot of things along the way ourselves. We can all think about that. But God's saying, don't dwell on that. As we talked about earlier, what's the best time to plant a tree? 25 years ago. What's the second best time to plant a tree? Right now. Start over. Do some things now that I didn't do earlier. God's a faithful God. He will bless our efforts as we try to be role models and examples to the generations that come after us. We need them. This church needs them. We have a young man who's speaking today. We need our young people to step up And part of how they will begin and to realize that they can step up is by us encouraging them and helping them along the way. Any final comments? I've gone too long. Oh, she's tapping me again. Hallelujah. All right. I appreciate all your comments today. Those who watched online, thank you as well. And continue to study this lesson, the lessons from Joshua and Caleb. We didn't get to everything. But what God gave us is sufficient to help us move forward in faith. Let's pray. Help us, Lord, as we go into the next service to continue to carry you with us, to recognize that you are our strength. You are our victory, that we can do all things through you who strengthens us. So give us the power, Lord, to be led by your Spirit, to walk with you in faith day by day, and to show that to those that we come in touch with, our young people, community, wherever we may be, our work comrades, whatever the case may be, may we continue to show you to those that we come in touch with. We thank you and praise you in Jesus' name.